31,000.
The number of safe flights on a 737 MAX in 2017.
6.5 million.
The number of 737 MAX passengers safely delivered to their destinations in that time.
118,000.
That's the number of flight hours logged without incident on the 737 MAX.
But it only took mere minutes for a malfunction of one sensor to turn into tragedy.
Hi, I'm Ethan Bader.
And I'm Pauline Scosi, stepping in for Rebecca Bennett at the last minute due to an unexpected illness.
We are consultants from Cloud Above Consulting Group from UT Dallas, and our purpose today is to evaluate the company's response to this crisis.
Now for a quick overview of what we're going to be discussing with you today. Our priority, again, is that evaluation of your response and our recommendations for you moving forward. But first, let's talk about what this company was founded on.
If you look at the company's website, you can see a list of core values published, and those include safety, integrity, and quality. These are principles that we feel every successful company needs to be built on. But the board of directors needs to ask itself,
are these the standards you were following during the development and production of the Boeing 737 MAX?
CEO Mr. Dennis Muhlenberg had a quote. He said, with a tragedy of this sort, there are a chain of events that occur. It is inappropriate to attribute these tragedies to any one single factor.
The 737 MAX was a product failure. However, it became a people failure when you failed to listen and educate the people involved, leading to a process failure, where employee concerns were not carried throughout the entirety of the company, ultimately culminating in a culture failure, what we believe to be the main issue here at Boeing. You moved away from a company that was focused on family standards to one that has simply become about monetary consequences. There has been a history of safety concerns, and we believe looking at what your employees describe the company culture to be here as pivotal into understanding the ethics of Boeing.
Frenetic.
You cannot be focused on safety if you are so focused on speed.
Fear of retaliation.
If concerns can't be brought up by employees, how can you ensure the safety and integrity of your flights?
More concerned with cost and schedule than safety and quality.
Again, moving away from those ethical standards you post on your website to simply being worried about economics.
We're going to take a moment to evaluate the company's response to these tragedies, and although we feel there are some things that the board has done well, there are some areas that we would like to see improved.
Ultimately, Boeing's response was both slow and distant. 8 days.
It took 8 days for this company to publish a bulletin explaining to pilots how they could respond to an MCAS emergency.
5 months.
It took 5 months for the company to acknowledge MCAS's role in these two accidents.
Last.
The company was last to publicly recommend grounding planes.
Too late.
The company CEO released a video statement of apology after the CEO of Southwest Airlines himself delivered his own apology.
Ultimately, when Boeing consistently released statements following these crashes that you are confident in the success of the Boeing 737 MAX, it makes it seem as if you are a company focused on technological advancement rather than what the public is worried about, what they have lost.
But the company has done some things very, very well, and we'll touch on those briefly. First, updates to the MCAS software, which have gone hundreds of hours of safety training, safety testing, once again committing the company to the core values of safety. In addition, increased mandates for pilot training and some organizational changes to the structure of the company.
However, your response is not over yet. We have a pyramid here built around those ethical standards you claim to have and the crisis factors that contributed to these accidents. At the core of your company's response should be ethical frameworks. At the core of every successful company, it is built from the ground up. And for this reason, we believe ethics should be at the cornerstone of how you continue to respond to these tragedies. We believe Boeing should take the response of deontological ethics, doing the right thing regardless of consequence. This dates back to Immanuel Kant. Too often in its recent history, Boeing has instead taken the mindset of Milton Friedman, profit above all else. We believe doing the right thing will force you to instead instill a company culture of safety and quality rather than one focused on monetary consequence. But how exactly can you go about making these ethical changes? We recommend an ethics audit, basically a group of outside individuals coming in to analyze through employee surveys and employee interviews what the ethical problems here are at Boeing. Through this, we believe you can take more specific information of how you can show employees that their concerns will be valued.
In a few weeks' time, the CEO, Mr. Muhlenberg, has an incredible opportunity to restore public trust in Boeing. He'll be called in front of the House of Representatives. During his testimony, Mr. Muhlenberg needs to accept responsibility for these tragedies, not full responsibility, because we believe that the FAA played a pivotal role in these two crashes. But he needs to bring experts with him to fully answer the questions posed to him by the committee.
Now you have a strong ethical framework, but how can you build a company culture based on employee concerns that shows every employee they are valued? We want to remind you of the story of Curtis Eubank, an engineer who brought about concerns of false activation of the MCAS system, but whose concerns were dismissed by middle management because of cost in pilot awareness training. Because of this, we believe you need to establish a culture where these concerns are rewarded through things like public honors, vacation days, even free flights. Next, we recommend that through that ethics audit, you show your employees they will not face retaliation because of whistleblowing. Although you are legally mandated to do this, we believe you must show employees they will not be treated any differently if they bring about these pivotal ethical concerns.
We'd like to make a few changes regarding specific individuals within the organization. First, we would like for the board to stand behind Mr. Dennis Muhlenberg. The board has stayed behind him throughout this whole crisis now, and changing that we don't feel like would be a good idea. He's been with the company for many, many years, and he of all people should understand those core values of safety, quality, and integrity. That being said, we thought long and hard about this, and one of the middle managers involved in this project was named Michael Teal. He was the one who directly nixed Curtis Eubank's proposal, and so we feel like that individual, it was inappropriate for him to take it upon himself to decide that cost was more important than safety.
Ethics and culture are important, but at its core, Boeing is a company that has had huge losses over the past 2 quarters. So what economic changes can you make to ensure the future success of Boeing?
We believe that you need to stand behind the MAX. It's been floated by industry analysts that we should consider either rebranding or doing away with the MAX entirely, but we think that this is a winning plane. In the long term, this is a great project. 5,000 planes have been sold. The market demand for these planes is huge. Your chief competitor, Airbus, is significantly backlogged in producing these planes. So don't let that focus on short-term losses deter you from the big picture of long-term profits.
However, we believe it is necessary you stop releasing estimates about when this Boeing plane will be released. In March, you said July.
In May, you said October.
It's October.
And the planes are still grounded.
We believe that this is harmful to your company's reputation for 3 main reasons. First, it makes it seem as if you are overeager and not confident in the timeline of the release of this plane. Second, it decreases trust among consumers and investors, ultimately culminating in the 3rd reason this is harmful, that it could relate to possible economic harm in your future. It is also important to analyze stock price management, our last economic recommendation. Because of this, we believe you should change middle management compensation due to issues that were brought about in the past. If you were to make these changes and instead tie compensation to safety, quality, or other reassurances, rather than simply cost and schedule, we believe you would have a much more safety process that is focused on that instead. Lastly, we would like to finish off the pyramid by taking a look at legal recommendations. These are going to be at the forefront of your company's mind in the short term. However, we do believe you can resolve these quickly and move on to those systemic changes. So for the civil charges, we believe that you should continue your process of settling with customers. In terms of victims, although you have started to settle individually, we believe you should instead take a global settlement approach, looking at about a $437 million settlement. This is a more direct route for victims to compensation, and it allows you to settle them all at once in a much easier process. In terms of the pilot lawsuit, we agree with your recommendation that this is a meritless case and that you do not need to pursue it.
There are several criminal investigations into the company's actions. The investigation by the SEC and the Department of Justice, Department of Transportation. Of course, the company needs to cooperate with these authorities. We believe, however, that the company has a strong chance with the Department of Justice, Department of Transportation suit, which looks into the FAA's designation process. The FAA, in a hearing earlier this year, stated that they had all the information they needed to certify that the plane was safe. And so we feel strongly, once again, that a lot of the responsibility lies with the FAA. We started our presentation today by giving you Boeing's motto, which is to build something better. And although this crisis may seem like a huge cloud over the organization, we'd like to remind the company that there have been other companies that faced crises similar to this one and emerged stronger than ever. For example, Ford with the Pinto, Samsung with the Galaxy Note 7, NASA with the Challenger. Each time, the companies were able to put out a better product.
It is necessary you take the recommendations we gave you because people everywhere are relying on you.
68.
That's the number of customers waiting for a better product from Boeing.
150,000.
That's the number of Boeing employees worldwide that rely on your decisions for their livelihood.
138.
That's the minimum number of passengers who put their safety in your hands every time a Boeing 737 MAX takes flight.
Okay, so now we're going to move into our Q&A portion of the presentation. So I'm going to hand over the microphone to the chair of our board for the Center for Leadership Ethics, Mr. Russ Johnson.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, turn off the microphone. Is it on?
Thank you.
Not yet.
Not yet?
Just speak to it closer.
On the screen is one of Boeing's enduring values, safety. We value human life and well-being above all else and take action accordingly. We are personally responsible and collectively accountable for safety at all levels for our teammates, our passengers, and those who service our products. Boeing's corporate culture has been cited as root cause of the MAX 737 crisis and for not adhering to Boeing's values. Why? Identify 3 changes that could be implemented by leadership at Boeing to bolster an ethical corporate culture.
All right, to answer this question of how to change ethical corporate culture within Boeing, we did address both ethical changes and cultural changes in our presentation. However, we would like to reaffirm some of the changes we brought up in our response to this question. Our first is that ethics audit that we discussed about. Several companies in the past have brought about this ethics audit in which these external people come in. Basically, that shows a specific ethical response that Boeing can take because this ethics audit is specialized to the company and can provide specific recommendations as to how the company culture is because of those employee concerns that were brought about.
Another change that the company needs to make is to make sure that employees who come forward to middle management with concerns have another avenue for their concerns. One change that the board made was an expanded anonymous safety reporting system. We just would like more details on how that is accomplished because once again, Curtis Eubank, whose job was to analyze plane crashes and recommend changes to make these planes safer, went to his managers and they said, no, this is going to cost too much. Your recommendation is going to cost too much. So he needs to have another level of organization within the company that he can go to so that middle management doesn't have to make that final decision.
In addition to that specific ethics audit that will hold Boeing accountable and that additional board that individuals can go to if they have ethical concerns, we also would like to reaffirm one of our economic recommendations, which was to change the compensation of middle management. Although we don't know the details of how Boeing compensates its middle managers, oftentimes in big companies it's related to cost and schedule. And because of Boeing's current corporate culture, we believe this to be the case. However, we believe that if you tied it instead to stock prices or how successful they are at abiding to these safety regulations, you would see a much better corporate culture in which middle managers are actually incentivized to listen to employee concerns and make those safety changes, rather than be incentivized by all the costs associated with it.
Going back really briefly, the question also asked why Boeing's corporate culture has been cited as a root cause. I believe that stems back to 2015. There's an FAA suit against Boeing stating that Boeing had issues with its safety processes. Some of its contractors, for example, were falsely certifying cargo doors. Workers were leaving tools inside of airplane wings. Electricians were improperly wiring these planes. And so I believe that stories such as those, coupled with this professed adherence to safety or this commitment to safety, I think really eroded the public trust in management.
And to close out, we would like to state those ethical theories that we brought up in our presentation, that you should be focused on Immanuel Kant's ideas of doing the right thing regardless of consequences, rather than focusing on Milton Friedman's philosophy of valuing profit above all else. Ultimately, you have a responsibility to Boeing and employees and consumers worldwide to build something better, and that starts within your company. If you can build trust among employees that they believe their concerns are being listened to, it all cycles out to the public as well. But you must build trust and hold yourself accountable here at Boeing before you can start to see sales rise and the public want to get back on these planes again and feel reaffirmed that 737 MAXs are an actually safe plane to ride on.
How about a round of applause? University of Texas at Dallas.